Before I serve this buffet of bloody family dysfunction, drop a comment. Was I selfish for saying no? Or just the only person in the room not high on entitlement fumes? And if you're new, hit subscribe. I narrate disasters so you don't have to live them. Right, so picture this. 2 emotionally exhausted adults, 1 dream, and a savings account that whimpered every time we even thought about Pret. My husband and I didn't just buy a condo, oh no. We clawed our way to it over 20 long, painfully frugal years. No holidays, no shiny new cars, no spontaneous getaways to Greece. Just lukewarm all-day Prosecco, secondhand furniture, and the shared delusion that one day, if we budgeted hard enough, we might actually own a flat with walls that didn't wobble when someone sneezed next door. And we did it. $350K of brick-and-mortar stability, our very own middle-class miracle. It wasn't fancy. We're not talking Chelsea townhouse. More like decent postcode if you squint and ignore the KFC. Drive-through, but it was ours. No more council flats with mushrooms growing in the shower or landlords called Dave who think fixing a leak means duct taping a bin bag to the ceiling. The place even had a dishwasher. I wept when we turned it on for the first time. Like actual tears. It felt like we'd arrived. No more marital disputes over whose turn it was to scrub the casserole dish from hell. Now we had a robot that did it, and didn't judge us for eating. Oven chips 3 nights a week. We called it the nest. I know, revoltingly twee. But after years of living like 2 overworked pigeons crammed into a budget bedsit, it felt nice to call it something soft. Something ours. No parents, no loans. No favors owed to dodgy uncles named Tony. Just pure, uncut financial independence. And yet, despite the decades of sacrifice, the skipped chippy teas, the birthdays celebrated with homemade cupcakes and tears of exhaustion, apparently, this condo wasn't ours enough. Because as I would soon find out, my family had other plans, and by heart plans, I mean they saw our home as a glorified piggy bank with laminate flooring. Lucky us. Now, if you've ever survived a British family, you'll know that the phrase, "we're having a family meeting," is right up there with "we need to talk." And your uncle's got a van. Nothing good ever follows it. It's not a meeting. It's an ambush in slippers. My dad sent a text. Just 3 words. Everyone Sunday dinner. No context. No warning. Just dread. The kind of dread that seeps into your bones and makes you question if you've accidentally committed fraud or run over someone's cat. So we turned up. Sunday roast already sweating on the table. Mum all dolled up in passive-aggressive pearls. And my dad, perched at the head of the table like some knockoff mob boss from EastEnders, clutching a lager and a manila folder like he is about to pitch a startup no one asked for. I wore mascara. Because I'm an idiot. Because somewhere deep down, I thought maybe this time, it would just be about gravy and football. You'd think I'd learn. But no, like a fool. I curled my lashes and walked straight into the trap like a Disney princess with unresolved trauma. My brother was already there, clearly briefed in advance, looking smug and overfed like a cat that's just knocked over a glass on purpose. My aunt, who lives for a bit of drama as long as it doesn't mess with her, bingo night, was sipping tea, like she wasn't actively watching our family burn from the sidelines. And Mum? She just hovered, in that way mums do, when they know something's coming, but are legally obligated to pretend they don't. And then came the line, the dreaded opener. Right then, we've all got to pull together, yeah? Which is British dad speak for, I need money. But I'm going to frame it like a heroic community effort, so I can guilt trip you into financial ruin. Lovely. I glanced at my husband, who raised one eyebrow, which in marriage language translates to brace yourself. Babe, here comes the emotional shakedown. Dad shuffled some papers, cleared his throat like he was about to deliver a TED Talk, and then launched into this heartfelt monologue about family sticking together and opportunities you don't want to miss, all while failing to notice that literally no one looked remotely inspired, let alone willing to sign over their equity. And I swear to God, at one point he even said, "You lot are lucky. You've got a place, you're sorted." Sorted? Oh yes, because 20 years of sacrifice, skipped holidays, and emotional constipation is apparently the same as winning the bloody lottery. I sat there, clutching my wine glass like it was a flotation device, wondering how long it would take for someone to say the quiet part out loud that Dad didn't want a conversation. He wanted a contribution. And spoiler alert, I wasn't about to give him one. So there it was. The opportunity. Capital O. My dad, the man who once Googled how to copy-paste, had a business plan. And all he needed was a cheeky $50K from his favorite daughter, which is ironic, considering he spent the last decade reminding me I was never quite right in the head after A-levels. The grand idea, a pub, but not just any pub, oh no. A modern, innovative, multi-stream digital experience. Translation, a knackered old boozer with pool tables, a crypto-themed cocktail list, and a Wi-Fi password that probably had Satoshi in it. Groundbreaking. Apparently, if I didn't remortgage our condo, our literal marriage, monument, to help him turn a sticky carpet, Weatherspoons reject into a blockchain cafe for lads who think Andrew Tate is misunderstood. I was a traitor to the family name. I wish I was exaggerating. I really do. I calmly said no, because I'm sane. Because risking our life, savings for a Dogecoin lager lounge, is the kind of decision you make after your third. Divorce and a spiritual retreat in Ibiza, not a Sunday roast. And that's when it happened. His face went red, like pub landlord whose team's just lost on penalties red. He slammed his pint down, pointed his stubby dad finger right at me, and said, "You ungrateful little soldier." I mean, what? What does that even mean? Is that a military insult? An emotional haiku? Did he confuse me with a child actor from a BBC war drama? My brain stalled. My husband blinked in disbelief. Even my aunt, who once voted UKIP because she liked the font, winced. It was like watching someone try to insult you with a crossword clue, and then, just in case the whole weird poetic slur wasn't dramatic enough, he grabbed a half-empty beer bottle and lobbed it at me, right there, at the dinner table, next to the parsnips. It hit me square in the cheek, shattered, beer everywhere. Like a low-budget soap scene, only no one yelled cut, and I was still bleeding into the gravy. And do you know what the rest of the family did? Nothing, not even a steady-on mate, not even a bit strong that Dave. Just awkward glances, the quiet shuffle of chairs, and my mom whispering, "He's just stressed, love. It's the economy." Ah, yes, of course, the cost of living crisis, the perfect excuse for projectile violence and emotional terrorism. I stood up, wiped the blood off with a serviette that still smelt of Auntie Sheila's perfume, and left, just like that. No screaming, no melodrama. I just took my dignity, what was left of it, and walked out. But what they didn't know, what none of them saw coming, was what I was planning next. And by the time they realized, it was already too late. So there I am, holding my ground like a sensible adult, politely declining to risk our entire life. Saving so my dad can rebrand a pub as some tragic crypto wet dream. And instead of processing his disappointment like a functioning adult, my father, the emotionally evolved caveman that he is, responds with a flying Stella Artois. Yes, really. Not even a can. A bottle, glass, cold, half full, which was honestly the biggest tragedy for him, considering how he treasures his lagers more than any of his actual children. And let me tell you, for a man who once dislocated his shoulder, trying to get a wasp's nest off the shed roof, his aim was terrifyingly accurate. Proper pub league technique, clean arc, full commitment, right into my face, split my eyebrow open like a blooming Cadbury's cream egg. And in that moment, surrounded by meat, gravy, and a family too emotionally constipated to blink, I became a living Banksy, bleeding sarcasm and disbelief across the mashed potatoes. Now you'd think someone, anyone, would leap up in horror. Call an ambulance, check if I still had both eyeballs. No, of course not. This is Britain. We do awkward silence and another cup of tea, not actual interventions. Mum whispered, "He didn't mean it, love." Didn't mean it? What, like the laws of physics accidentally hurled that bottle into my orbital socket? Did Newton forget to carry the one? And my brother? Oh, he just muttered, "You always escalate things." Right. Of course. Me, bleeding out into the roast parsnips. I'm the dramatic one. Next time I'll just duck with more empathy, shall I? Meanwhile, my husband, God bless his passive-aggressively furious soul, slowly placed his fork down like it personally offended him, stood up and said, "Right, that's us done then." And that's when the room fractured. You could feel it. The secondhand shame. The boiling embarrassment no one wanted to admit to. Not because my dad had thrown a bottle, but because I'd had the absolute cheek to react to it. We left. Quietly. No dramatic exit speech. No tossing the Yorkshire puds across the table. Just blood, disbelief, and my dignity limping behind us like it needed a crutch. In the car, my husband handed me a tissue, stared dead ahead and said, You know, we could press charges, and I just laughed. One of those proper broken laughs. The kind you do when life's handed you trauma in a Tesco bag and said, no receipt. Because really, what else do you do when your dad treats a Sunday roast like it's fight night on Sky Sports? You keep bleeding, you keep breathing, and you start planning the pettiest, most middle-class revenge imaginable. And oh, they were not ready for what we did next. There's something uniquely British about bleeding in a room full of people and still feeling like you're the one being dramatic. So there I was, eyebrow split, blood dripping down my cheek like I was in the middle of some gritty Channel 4 drama, mascara mixing with crimson, repeat of both. And I made the fatal mistake of assuming someone would step in. Anyone. Even the cat, to be honest. Mum, who can normally spot a speck of dust from across the cul-de-sac and throw a moral crisis over it, was suddenly very interested in the wallpaper. You'd think the skirting board was giving her the meaning of life. I could have caught fire and she'd probably ask if I'd tried turning myself off and on again. My brother, always the emotional heavyweight, made a noise. Not a word, a noise. Somewhere between a deflating tire and a reluctant fart. Very helpful, cheers Dave. And Auntie Pauline, the same woman who once rugby tackled a burglar outside, Asda because he pinched her kettle. Blinked. That was it. A single lonely blink. Not even a gasp. The woman had more emotional range when Aldi ran out of her favorite chutney. I stood there, clutching a blood-soaked napkin like I'd accidentally tripped into a Scorsese film, surrounded by actual humans, people who've held me as a baby, borrowed my lawnmower, cried during Downton Abbey, and realized I was bleeding more than any of them cared. The silence was so loud, it could have been sponsored by the NHS mental health waitlist. And then my dad, the human grenade, with legs just cracked open. Another beer like he hadn't just used me as a dartboard. No apology, no oops, just vibes. He even muttered drama queen, under his breath like he wasn't the one flinging glass at his firstborn's head. There's this moment in trauma, real trauma, where everything slows down. You take in the faces, the carpet, the sound of the clock ticking like it's mocking you. And all I could think was, this is my family. These are my people. And not one of them gives a toss that I'm slowly bleeding out next to the gravy boat. It was like being surrounded by IKEA furniture. Looks supportive at first glance. But try leaning on it, and it'll absolutely collapse under pressure. The worst part? I wasn't even surprised. Hurt, yes. Heartbroken, obviously. But surprised? Not even a bit. Because deep down, I knew. This was just the climax of years of nicely brushed under emotional warfare. Decorated in bunting and washed down with a pint of lager. I pressed the napkin harder against my eyebrow, took a breath, and told myself, you're not crazy. You're just the only one here not committed to a shared family delusion. And that was the moment I mentally checked out. No more people-pleasing. No more keeping the peace. The peace had already been lobbed at my face in a Stella bottle. I looked at my husband. He didn't say a word. He just nodded. The kind of nod you give before doing something irreversible. And that's when it hit me. This wasn't going to be fixed. Not by apologies. Not by awkward Sunday texts. Not even by that one family WhatsApp group no one ever checks. No, this was going to be dealt with our way. And oh, darling, the petty vengeance we had brewing made that bleeding eyebrow feel like foreplay. You know, that very specific British breed of man who doesn't shout, doesn't swear, and doesn't throw a fit, because he doesn't need to? That's my husband. The type of bloke who once stared down a fox in our garden, and somehow made it apologize. Quiet, steady, emotionally fluent in exactly 2 tones. Mild amusement, and you just made a mistake you'll regret for the rest of your natural life. So after my dad, who clearly thinks we're living in some low-budget EastEnders spin-off where beer bottles count as punctuation, went full. Weatherspoon's gladiator on my face, my husband didn't flinch, didn't rage, didn't lecture. He simply looked at my dad, dead in the eyes. The kind of stare that says I own power tools and I know where the skip is, wherein said, in the calmest voice I've ever heard, if you ever throw anything at my wife again, I'll throw you off your own front step. That's it. No shouting. No theatrical exits, just a quiet promise of violence. So gentlemanly it could have been embroidered on a tea towel. And speaking of tea towels, I was using one to catch the blood dribbling from my eyebrow. It had robins on it. Absolutely ruined. Mum's gonna be fuming when she realizes. Assuming she ever looks away from her existential wallpaper study group. Anyway, that was our cue. We left. Me, bleeding and clutching a festive tea. Towel like some war widow on Christmas morning. Him, holding my bag with the casual grace of a man who's Googled how to dispose of a body. More than once, just in case. You know, for legal reasons. There was no dramatic slamming of the door. Just the squeak of a sticky hinge. The sound of Dad cracking open another lager like he hadn't just committed. Battery with bonus glass shards. And the click of my husband's car keys. No one followed us. No one asked if I was okay, or if I could still see out of the eye he'd just rearranged. The silence from the rest of them was louder than the bloody Stella bottle. We got in the car. I was holding back tears. Not because I was sad, but because I didn't want to smudge the one bit of eyeliner that had somehow survived the siege. That, and because I'd hit that post-trauma numbness where crying feels like too much admin. I looked over at my husband, hands steady on the wheel, jaw clenched but calm. The calm that comes right before the storm. The kind that doesn't just blow through, it levels the whole bloody village and takes your council tax bill with it. That's when I knew. Something in him had snapped too. And he's the kind of man who doesn't snap lightly. He plans, he strategizes. He creates spreadsheets titled Family Chaos Updated. So while I was bleeding, emotionally fried, and trying to hold myself together with a Robins on Snow tea towel and pure spite, he was already building the blueprint for what came next. And trust me, what came next wasn't going to include Sunday roast with passive-aggressive carrots and people who call you ungrateful while you're actively leaking from your face. This wasn't just the end of a family meeting. This was the beginning of a reckoning. And darling, the quiet ones, they always burn the house down last. Truth be told, we'd already started looking for a way out. You know? Before the flying lager and the emotional gaslighting tapas platter. That lovely phase in life where you scroll right move like it's Tinder, whispering, please have a functioning boiler. Like it's a romantic prayer. But after the Stella situation, let's just say the house hunt went from someday to how fast can we pack without alerting the neighbors or triggering Dad's sixth sense for being cut off financially? See, the moment your family starts treating your home like a cash machine with a dishwasher, it stops being a sanctuary. It becomes collateral, a prop. A stage where they can perform their dramas while rifling through your biscuit tin. So we called the solicitor, quietly, calmly, like spies. Spies with joint back pain, limited patience, and a growing hatred for family WhatsApp groups. And we'd like to list the property, discreetly. No for sale sign. No fanfare. No room for my Aunt Sheila to turn up asking if she can just measure the loft. For a friend. Honestly, the whole process felt like a low-budget heist film. Except instead of planning a casino robbery, we were trying to escape a semi-detached emotional hostage situation in Zone 5. We booked viewings while pretending to be having work done on the roof. We started boxing up our life with the subtlety of MI5 agents. And I swear, I began labeling everything in code, just in case my mum popped round unannounced and clocked the bubble wrap. What's this box marked dog jackets, donate? Oh, just clearing out. You know me, always decluttering. We don't even own a dog. The thing is, when you grow up in a family that thinks silence equals complicity, you learn to move quietly, to shift and pack and plan while smiling politely and saying things like, yeah, of course we'll pop round next Sunday. Fully knowing you'll be in a new postcode by then. I stopped answering calls. My brother texted me a meme of a chicken wearing sunglasses and I didn't reply, which, in our family, is basically a ceasefire declaration. Dad miraculously didn't reach out. Probably too busy pitching his crypto pub to drunk men with no credit score. Meanwhile, my husband became the logistics king. Calm, efficient. Rage, channeled entirely into spreadsheet, tabs and utility comparisons. Watching him find a broadband provider with the fury of a man wronged by BT is, honestly, my Roman Empire. We weren't just leaving a house. We were evacuating a whole emotional ecosystem. The passive aggression, the martyrdom Olympics, the Sunday dinners that tasted of resentment and overboiled cabbage. And here's the best part. They had no idea. We ghosted our own relatives. Like a toxic situationship. Only instead of untagging photos, we were hiring a man in a van named Clive to smuggle our kettle out the back door. Because that's what happens when your family treats your boundaries like suggestions. You stop announcing exits, you just start leaving. And if they ever wonder where we went, they can ask the for sale listing. It's under-detached in more ways than one. Apparently I was being dramatic. Apparently moving house to avoid getting bottled at Sunday lunch is overreacting. Apparently, in the great family ledger of sins, catching a Stella to the face is just part of the charm. like forgetting birthdays or casual emotional blackmail over trifle. And, my personal favorite, we didn't think you'd actually go through with it. Which is rich, coming from people who've spent years using guilt as currency and roast dinners as bribes. Let me just pause for a second and say, imagine being so allergic to accountability. You genuinely think someone's eyebrow split open is a social inconvenience? Not, trauma. I mean, call me uptight. But I reckon the line between family disagreement and A&E visit should be somewhere before projectile alcohol. But hey, what do I know? I was raised by people who think sweeping things under the rug counts as conflict resolution. And that crying is a form of emotional manipulation, unless you're doing it into a gin and tonic while EastEnders is on. Anyway, once word got out that we were actually selling up, as in keys cut, contracts drafted, estate agent wearing too much links, kind of selling, the backpedaling began. Mum rang. Not to say sorry, God. No, but to inform me very gently that I was blowing it all out of proportion and making Dad feel terrible. As if my primary role in this life is to emotionally babysit the man who launched a beer bottle at my head like we were in a Weatherspoon's remake of Gladiator. He's not himself lately. It was just the drink talking. He was under pressure. Right, and I'm the tooth fairy. With a concussion, my brother sent me a text. It said, and I quote, "Don't know what to say, but it's a shame it's come to this." Ah, yes. The classic male apology, vague, emotionally vacant, and designed to imply that I'm the problem, but in a way that sounds vaguely neutral. He followed it up with a meme about lasagna. I didn't reply. Emotional growth. Even my aunt, the same one who once put a man in a headlock for nicking her, Sky Remote, chimed in with a Facebook post that read, "Families fight, but love always wins." Right beneath that was a photo of a rose and an angel wing. No punctuation. I can only assume it was meant to be healing. It felt more like a threat. Thing is, they didn't apologize because they were sorry. They apologized because they were caught. Because I'd finally broken the unspoken contract. Keep quiet. Keep turning up. Keep pretending we're all fine. But this time, I didn't play the role. No tidy ending. No tearful hugs on the doorstep. No final chippy tea where someone whispers, "Let's just move on." I ignored them. I let the calls ring out, let the texts rot unread. I even blocked Dad after he left a voicemail where he cried, "You've always been difficult." Which, from a man who weaponizes Greg's pasties, felt a bit rich. Honestly, it was freeing. There's a strange power in choosing silence, in refusing to perform the usual emotional gymnastics just so everyone else can sleep easy. And maybe that makes me dramatic. Maybe I am a bit much. But if too much means protecting my peace and my actual face, then fine. Call me dramatic, call me gone. And just like that, the flat sold. No dramatic goodbyes. No teary waving from the front step. Not even a last-minute guilt pie from Mum. Just a signature, a set of keys, and the quiet satisfaction of knowing no one would ever again try to emotionally blackmail me in the same room where I do my laundry. We moved to the seaside. Not the whimsical, Instagrammable kind either. No influencers. With ring lights or overpriced oysters in sight. We're talking proper British seaside, sleepy, faded, slightly damp, smells vaguely of chips and disappointment. Absolutely perfect. The kind of place where you nod at your neighbors but don't talk to them. Where the biggest local scandal is someone's shed being a bit too modern. Where no one knows my dad, his short fuse, or his career-ending aim with a bottle of Stella. We bought a smaller place outright. No mortgage, no debt, no family wandering and unannounced asking. If the spare room is still technically theirs. Just birdsong, the occasional fox screaming like it's possessed, and enough peace to make you suspicious you've missed something. The house is quiet, still, emotionally undemanding, which is lovely, until you realize how addicted you were to chaos. I kept waiting for someone to storm in and demand a favor, or accuse me of ruining the vibe, because I didn't want to remortgage my future for someone's dodgy crypto pub cafe hybrid. But no, nothing. Just my husband asking if we really need 3 bloody air fryers. Spoiler, we don't. He thinks we do. His argument? What if we want chips and wings at the same time? As if we're running a pop-up Nando's. Sometimes I catch myself standing in the kitchen just breathing. Like I'm waiting for a bottle to come flying past my ear, or for someone to passive-aggressively comment on how quiet I've been lately, which is family code for, "You're not emotionally performing for us, and it's making us uncomfortable." But instead I get seagulls. a husband who makes me tea without asking if I'm hormonal, and the terrifying, beautiful silence of a life where no one expects me to bleed for their comfort. I haven't blocked everyone. Not fully. I've just turned the volume down. No more guilt-laced group chats. No more Sunday dinners that feel like hostage situations. Just the occasional birthday card that says, "Thinking of you," which, translated from family English, means we still think you're being a bit dramatic. But we're pretending to be grown-ups now. And you know what? Let them. They can sit around the family table, sipping weak tea, telling themselves I'll come crawling back. That it was just a phase. That I'll realize how important family is. Meanwhile, I'll be here, in my overpriced coastal bungalow, with 2 air fryers and a man who'd throw my dad off. A front step without breaking. Eye contact. Freedom doesn't always come with fireworks. Sometimes it comes with a smaller house, a better lock, and the quiet joy of never needing to apologize for existing ever again. Sold, gone, goodbye. And thank God for it. Every time I do my eyebrows, which, by the way, is now a peaceful activity rather than prep for emotional warfare, I see it. That tiny, wonky little scar, right above my left brow. A charming souvenir from the night my dad mistook my face for a pub dartboard. It's healed now, mostly. Bit of a raised bump. Slight dip in the arch. Nothing major. Doesn't stop me leaving the house. Doesn't make me cry in the mirror. Just sits there like a sarcastic little whisper on my face. Remember when peace cost you a chunk of your forehead? And I do. I remember all of it. The beer. The silence. The tea towel soaked in blood and denial. The moment I realized no one in that room would save me, because they were too busy pretending everything was fine, and I was just being difficult again. Ah yes, the classic British defense mechanism. Ignore the violence and blame the mood. Now that scar, it's mine. Not something anyone else owns. Not a mark of shame. Not even a conversation starter. I don't say things like, "Oh, this? Just a little accident at a family dinner." Because it wasn't an accident. It was a turning point. The moment my inner peace finally screamed, "Pack your bags, love, we're not dying on this hill." And here's the thing. Healing's not glamorous. It's not yoga and sea air and wildflower teas in hand-thrown mugs. It's crying over the gas bill in your new house, because peace still costs money. It's walking past the pub and flinching when you hear someone shout, even though you know they're just arguing about whose round it is. It's knowing that part of your family still thinks you're the problem, because admitting they let you bleed in silence would ruin the next Christmas trifle. And if my dad ever tries to contact me again, through some dramatic, guilt-soaked letter, or a dodgy Facebook message with too many emojis, I'll send him the bill. For the tea towel, and for the therapy I absolutely will not be attending, because quite frankly, I've had enough talking. I don't want closure. I want silence. I want eyebrow symmetry, and maybe a 4th air fryer, just to wind up my husband. So yeah, I still have the scar, but it's mine. And in a world where people will happily borrow your peace and sell it back to you with interest, that means something. Because when you've survived family warfare, learned to say no with your whole chest, and walked away with nothing but a tiny line above your eye and your dignity mostly intact, that's not weakness. That's British bloody resilience. Now, if you'll excuse me, I've got eyebrows to pencil in and a life to live, far away from flying bottles, guilt trips disguised as casseroles, and people who think a decent apology sounds like, "You know I didn't mean it." Love. Spoiler. They always mean it. So, was I a cold-hearted daughter with boundary issues? Or just finally allergic to chaos? Drop your verdict below. And if you've ever been hit in the face by both a beer bottle and childhood trauma in one night, give that like button a gentle tap. You've earned it.